Be like,
Let the day fade away. My cat's trying to.
I'll go get my cat and we can talk about our cat.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Once
Oh, it's a little baby.
this is my cat Fiona.
Pick up Jaguar. This is Jags. Jaguar.
Oh, hi cat. Our cats keep us sane and they love us.
She does. Yeah.
Supporting
She stresses me
sustainability
out.
work for 4 years.
That on a collar. Hey folks, this is Joe Rule with the Bold Visions podcast, where I interview marketers and creatives about how to tell better stories about tech. Show notes and links for this episode can be found at raconteuranimation.com/podcast. Today on the show, I spoke with Sarah Ocell, the principal consultant and founder of Animate Collective. She is a technology, communications, and circular economy strategist focused on investment, curiosity, and stewardship to shape future realities. She's an award-winning, ambitious systems innovator with over 10 years' experience in entrepreneurship, community growth, and has impacted tens of millions in business development for transformational companies. Sarah is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. The way she sees business and marketing is really insightful. I was impressed with her creativity and the way she approaches problems. She always explains things in a way that's quite easy to understand. In particular, I found her perspective on systems thinking to be interesting. She tends to approach business or building a business or solving sustainability problems from more of a holistic approach that involves many factors or stakeholders instead of kind of the binary give and take we might be used to in other thinking frameworks. She shared some great wisdom for founders, especially for early stage startups, and ways that they can help get traction in multiple areas of their business with storytelling. Her company Animate and the free systems thinking canvas can help founders get clarity and implement the right stories in the right places and ultimately know where to start with marketing and storytelling in their businesses. And to download that canvas or to contact Sarah, you can find the links in the show notes for those things. So thanks so much for tuning in to listen, and I hope you enjoy this dive into startup storytelling and systems thinking with Sarah Ocell. Well, all right, official start then. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you and just share everything that I've learned about what you're doing over the past times we've chatted, share it with the world.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
I've appreciated connecting with you, and it sounds like we have a similar passion for moving the industrial space, manufacturing forward. I appreciate your interest in learning more about systems thinking and sustainability as well.
It's endlessly fascinating and engaging. There's a lot of meaning behind it as well, and using tech ultimately to make the world a better place. That's kind of the why behind everything. Along those lines, I like to start out interviews with something a little fun, learn about the guest, what brought you to where you are today. In your LinkedIn, I came across that you grew up on a farm or an orchard, and there was something about being interviewed, cleaning up trash as a kid, like being on the local TV. How did that background influence where you are today? Where did that passion come from for the environment?
Yeah, growing up in Washington, particularly the Seattle area, we were exposed to a lot of sustainability initiatives. I remember when they introduced recycling and composting into our schools. My family was a part of a hiking group hosting a trash cleanup. They got a local airline, like small seaplane airline involved. And so we hiked to the top of this mountain, and the seaplane airline was taking us around the lake to clean up. Of course, the news is going to interview the kids who are there, but that was definitely an experience that helped me realize when we bring people together, we can make big change. Growing up on farms, I was able to observe environmental cycles, and that really taught me about ecosystems, When you're on a farm, you shape the future of your destiny, and you need to be proactive about caring for the system of the farm. When you do that, the system will give back to you with a bounty of harvest. I experienced our family farm worked on going organic, and with that, you have to take care of the soil health. We've built an agricultural system that is heavily reliant on pesticides, monocropping processes. So you really have to do it differently, like figure out how to take care of chickens that will take care of the pests on your farm instead of just spraying chemicals everywhere. I also really felt through all of these experiences and just growing up in the Northwest, we have such beautiful nature here. We truly are on a spaceship Earth, and this is our support system. It gives us our food, our water. It helps us survive. Forget about money and all of the infrastructure we've built. We need to take care of our original infrastructure, which is Earth.
I appreciate that perspective. And it's something that, oddly enough, the more getting very, very psychological, very introspective here, but the more inner work I do, the more I realize how important it is to take care of this delicate environmental bubble that keeps us all alive. I think it's easy in working with all this high-tech stuff, it's easy to forget what is actually supporting life on Earth. We can't do it without a healthy world.
Yeah, even within the environmental movement, it's starting to get better, but environmental justice is particularly important. We are not going to move change without moving people, and we need to solve our social problems to solve our environmental problems. We have a pretty siloed focus on carbon emissions and energy as the solution, whereas we actually have 8+ planetary boundaries, a material reality, pollution reality, et cetera. There's a wide gap in where we're putting our investment, and a lot still needs to be solved.
What was the term you just used? Material boundary?
Planetary boundaries.
Can you elaborate on what that is?
Yeah, so if you Google planetary boundaries, I think David Attenborough even narrated a documentary that is on Netflix about it. There's also a book called Donut Economics by Kate Raworth. This talks about healthy zones for use of our planetary resources or impact on the planetary resources. So, for example, with air pollution and carbon, we all know we are living beyond what the planet can healthily sustain. The planet does have ecosystems that work to take care of itself. The trees take carbon out of the air and make oxygen, which we need to breathe. They also keep our planet within a healthy temperature range so everything can survive. We also have, the water systems. We have the material resources that are on our planet in support of the electrification industry. We're running out of critical minerals to make batteries. So to live within a healthy boundary of using the minerals, it takes thousands, millions of years to create these minerals on Earth. We're not going to get more in the time that we need more. So where I'm working in the circular economy, for example, we need to invest in remanufacturing, upgrade, refurbish, repair, et cetera, recycling service, all of that before we even consider recycling services. That's how we keep our materials in use, and that is one of the other planetary boundaries.
Gotcha. So you're saying a planetary boundary is like a limit to the number of resources that we can make and keep the status, the
Yes.
homeostasis of the
Yes.
planet. Okay. I had another follow-up question.
Well, this relates to systems thinking, and all of these are systems that we're starting to better understand, create data about, and then figure out solutions to manage staying within those boundaries.
I wish I could remember what it was because it was a good follow-up, but
Oh,
maybe
that's
it'll
okay.
come back to me. Yeah, let's jump onto systems thinking. I did some reading on things that you had posted on that before, and I don't think I had encountered that term before, systems thinking. So maybe that's just a good place to start. Can you define what that is? And then specifically, how do you use this framework in relation to sustainability and the supply chain?
That's a good question. Over the decades, we've come up with different frameworks for thinking about operating in the business world, or when we invent things. We have total quality management, the framework for quality control and safety within your manufacturing process. We have lean and continuous improvement, the framework for driving efficiency. Design thinking is a framework for innovation. Systems thinking is a framework for understanding your business operating environment. You can compare it to maybe a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or apply that thinking when you're doing a systems thinking exercise. I'll just share my screen. I've been developing a tool to help folks. And when I do mentorship with early stage founders, typically engineers and scientists, their specialty has been the innovation space, the hard tech space, or materials. So they haven't necessarily been exposed to things like stakeholders. When you create a business, you're going to work with the user of your product, but there's also going to be a buyer. If you're in the B2B space, which we are in the industrial world, there's typically going to be a buying group that's going to have, legal, procurement, finance. Those people may not directly be using your product, but you should engineer your business to interface with them, just like you engineer your product to interface with your user or end customer. And within a system, there's also going to be political factors. There's going to be social factors, like where are your customers being influenced? Where do they spend their time? You're going to be working with a supply chain. Chances are when you're starting out, you're not going to be totally vertically integrated. Even enterprises aren't vertically integrated. They have to deal with a supply chain. There's very few that own every single aspect of their operations. You need to consider who you're working with, and that could create problems or opportunities for your business. Your business is going to have an impact, positive or negative, on the health of people in our world, and also the health of the environment. Connecting this back to sustainability and the sustainable development goals, I created this framework to give folks an idea of, you're offering a solution, but really that is to solve a problem. In order to solve the problem effectively, you need to consider all aspects of the operating environment that you're entering.
I'm putting myself in I am a founder. I'm putting myself in the shoes of other founders. It's a lot to take in. Like, there's a lot of variables. It seems like it'd be really hard to know where to start or to kind of get concrete information or concrete data there about make sure that I'm not just making a ton of assumptions when I
Yeah.
start to put this framework together. So how do you usually start to implement this with startup founders or any company?
Yeah. Why I usually don't start with this whole map.
Okay.
I usually just start with buying group. So we have an innovation. I want to understand fully what that innovation does. Then I'll start addressing, do you know, like, who are you selling to? We get to understand the user, and then we identify, like, okay, maybe the user might be different than the actual customer. And we're like, who are the people influencing this decision? That's how you create an ideal customer profile. You can think of the motivations or challenges these people are dealing with and consider how to position your business to them. Then we look at what are the value flows. So what is the system of businesses and technologies that you are operating in? So maybe you have a electric vehicle charging device. Your device may need to integrate with utility providers, and they might have software that you need to display in your site. You might have software that you display to your customers. And then
Mhm.
your customers may also be using software to find your charging device. You may need to work with different types of sales models for how your device is going to be deployed. You might have a franchise model, or you might have direct sales where a business just wants to host your device on site. So these are all direct things that impact the way that your business is going to operate or go to market. We look at that. Then we want to think about, okay, how are we going to start promoting your business and driving sales? Are there any political incentives, like laws being passed, that are going to rapidly accelerate the expansion of your business? Or lobbying or risks or activist groups that could cause friction with your deployment. And then maybe there's grants that you can be promoting to your customers to help incentivize your sales. Then you get into marketing and sales and business development. You should always be aware, because I think we're finding consumers are becoming a lot more savvy and caring in the way that they work with businesses. I have found in my past that up to 25% of opportunities in a pipeline are looking at sustainability information on a company's website.
Oh, wow.
That could have a
Wow.
big impact on your sales and be a major competitive differentiator for you.
For sure. Depending on the demographic,
Yeah.
depending on the type of customer. What's popping out to me is a tremendous amount of risk mitigation in a really good way. Every box there, I see the risk of the business going down because you're controlling so many variables outside of the traditional, hey, do we have an ICP? Do we have a strategy? Do we have a whatever? How did you learn this structure? Where did it come from? How were you introduced to it?
That's a good question. I originally studied industrial design at within an engineering college at a university that had Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington. And the whole university overall has a strong sustainability focus. They also have a strong applied research focus and engage undergraduate and cross-departmental programs in moving innovation forward. And I think that this is a strong approach because you get to work with a diversity of people in develop. First of all, you get real world applications for what you're learning, and that you get to work with a diverse group of people like you would in the real world. And I think the way that our education system is set up in a lot of cases tends to be pretty siloed, and that is also how our legacy companies have created their business. Engineering creates a product. They hand it off to someone to market the product and sell the product. It's not an integrated system. And we're finding these days the highest growth businesses actually take a systems thinking approach to developing their business. You should always have feedback loops from all of these different experts in order to move your business forward. That was kind of the beginning of it, but I also had sustainability education. We learned about life cycle analysis. You think of the whole process that a product is going to go through, from like initial resources all the way through, what does a customer do when they're done using this product and where does it go?
Does that tie into growth marketing at all, where it's trying to control more than the typical not inbound, where you're starting to track and utilize the customer journey after the sign-on, like throughout the customer life cycle? Am I
Oh, yeah.
am I
Yeah.
barking
So,
up the right tree there?
yeah, I'm working in the circular economy, but
So-
from my agriculture background, I started to see the concept of regenerative farming. Within regenerative farming, you think about the ecosystem your business exists in, and part of that ecosystem is fungus. The fungus carries a lot of nutrients to different plants and helps them communicate with each other. And that helped me think about networks. And I'm in marketing and I'm very fascinated by networks. My greatest strength is my networking. So when I'm looking at my network, I'm like, who are all the people that maybe need to move here? How can whatever I'm doing with this network benefit all of these people? You should never stand on stage alone as your business. How can you move forward in the market while helping your peers also move forward? That's only going to strengthen and make your business more resilient.
Some high level strategy for sure,
Inspired by
because they're
fungus.
mushrooms are awesome.
Yeah,
I've listened to a few Paul Stamets interviews over the years.
nice.
Do you have tips for somebody who is, that knows they need to think this way and build their business in this way? That's a lot of chess pieces on the board. There are a lot of variables and factors and stakeholders in a business. How can somebody start to take that apart and find tangible ways to find that synergy amongst many people?
I think a good way to start practicing is simply at a networking event. When I was growing, I started the Women in 3D Printing meetup here in Seattle. And when I was thinking about how to grow this, I realized like the people that I'm trying to reach might be going to other meetups. I have my target audience, my organization, and then I have other people that they already trust. And so if I partner with these other people that they already trust and they refer me to these people, then these people may start going to my meetup too. This led to all of the hardware meetups in Seattle having an annual Makers of Seattle winter gathering where everyone could showcase their projects. Over 100 people came and we had robots running around. And it was just a fun way to build the community. But try just adding one. So when you have two people in a scenario, like you're facing each other, you're trying to like, what do we do together? But when you have three people in a scenario, that creates flow, and everyone can benefit.
Mm.
Everyone can benefit, and then that flow, like you can start adding more things to that flow. That's how we start the flywheel moving, as people like to say.
It's brilliant because recently I've been learning about 3-pole electric motors. There's a design where one electric motor has a really hard time starting because there's only 2 poles in it. Adding a third one enables the engine to essentially go forever. It creates more initial momentum.
And inertia.
Yes, exactly. Apologize to all the electrical engineers out there that I just insulted. I appreciate that perspective because I never would have thought that adding more variables or more people to the equation would actually make it easier to get traction. That's a positive message for
Yeah.
sure. We had briefly talked about the customer life cycle as part of that systems thinking. One of the things I wanted to ask you about were when you're coming in with an early stage company, an early stage startup, and you're helping them build out their marketing strategy. And on our end, on my company's end, we're helping them with the storytelling. You had mentioned that there's very specific touch points in the life cycle of a customer, and you need very specific stories at each of those touch points to help make the business healthy, to help move them through the life cycle. Can you touch on what those touch points are, first of all?
Yeah, I think that business is all about relationships. And when you are growing a relationship with someone, you meet them, have an introduction. And this phase of the marketing pipeline is awareness. In awareness, you introduce your brand, the aspirations of your brand, and about your company. Are you a leader in your industry? Why should they meet you? Then we get into considering if we want to be friends. Let me be a bit vulnerable with you and share some more things. Like, I'm struggling with this. That is where you start to capture people. At the awareness phase, you need to consider how much time people are willing to give at each of these phases. So in the awareness phase, maybe they're only willing to give you 10 seconds to 2 minutes of their time, and you want to catch their attention. They've met you. Now they want to consider if they want to be friends with you. They're going to start spending a bit more time with you, maybe 2 minutes to 30 minutes. And you have a little hangout. Or in this case, your marketing material might help address some of their problems, help them see some initial success. Like, you can indeed help them if you do help them with this consideration material. That can also be things like webinars. Those are really powerful consideration materials. Give them some way to start working with you that doesn't cost you much money, like that systems thinking canvas that I shared. That is my consideration tool. That's something that people can download for free. It didn't cost me much money to make. It's just a PDF, but it can help them with their business. And they can see that, okay, maybe I should talk to Sarah more and consider buying something from her. If you have a hardware product, a consideration activity could be giving people the opportunity to try it at a trade show, or doing like live. If you have a customer in a region you're doing a pilot with, get recordings of that and proof that you helped their business. If you have a software product, often that's free trials. And then there's the decision-making phase where they're like, okay, we're going to put money down. And they're really going to spend time with you on that. So that's 30 minutes to several hours. And that's where, like, engineers want to talk about the features, but you're going to have to hold back and wait a bit because they're not ready to hear about that yet. They need to be willing to give you that time. So all of your marketing content is just warming up and nurturing the relationship. And actually might take, on average, between 11 to 14 touches between awareness to consideration
Wow.
before they're even willing to make a decision and spend money in the B2B space.
That's a good kind of a wake-up call, I guess. 11 to
Yeah.
14 touches is a lot. And is that under the context of all channels or specifically social media?
In the annual buying cycle in the B2B space, that's about one engagement with that customer a month.
It could be outreach emails or something
It
as
could
well.
be like they see a social media post and these social media posts are like fun and they want to follow your brand, or maybe they give you quick tips to do your job better, so you want to keep following the brand. Maybe then you're like, okay, I really like these, I want to start following the email. You subscribe to the newsletter, you send a newsletter out once a month or twice a month. If you have a tracking system, you see they've had a certain amount of engagements, figure out how many touch points or certain pieces of content signal that they're ready to make a decision. Like they watched a webinar, that is the strongest, or they attended a webinar actually. They
Hmm.
attend a live event,
Okay.
that is the strongest signal that they're ready to buy. And especially if they ask a question. So get your sales
Okay.
on those leads right away.
What's the typical, if you have those strong buying signals, what's the typical follow-up there?
So with your marketing funnel or pipeline in your CRM, you should set up ways of tracking content. Like HubSpot CRM, for example, you can create tracking codes, and those tracking codes have information with them. We have certain customer segments and they have certain problems. If you see that they're going through this kind of content, then when your salesperson follows up, they should be able to see that information on that person's CRM profile. That should help
Okay.
them be informed of what this customer wants before the customer even tells them. Customers are doing more. I think there's a company called Sixth Sense, and they do account-based marketing. And I had a study on like when is an account ready to buy, and
Mm.
80% have already made up their decision by going through content before they even talk to sales.
That is a big paradigm shift that I've seen between the old, it's a broad sweeping generalization with the old school B2B companies versus the new ones. The new ones realize that customers are making buying decisions before talking to anybody. That's a very different mindset.
So figure out how to present your product digitally without a salesperson in as many ways as you can. Animation,
Yeah.
for example, is a great way to
Yes, exactly.
demonstrate your product.
Exactly. And for anybody listening, it's cheap. It's cheaper and it has unlimited reach.
Yeah.
Whereas salespeople have to sleep and eat
Yes.
things. At least most of them do. I wanted to go back to that initial thing you talked about. Awareness was the first touch point,
Yeah.
right? Do you immediately try to hit on pain points there? Because I see what you're trying to do there, I assume, would be to get attention. You're trying to hook them.
Yeah.
So what's the typical mindset, the strategy, or the angle behind that?
When I think about awareness, I'm thinking in terms of theater. I want to be seen, or you want your brand to be seen. This comes back to never stand on stage alone. That's like presence at conferences, being thought of as like for your values, like you value quality. Maybe you got a recognition for your outstanding quality or your outstanding customer service. You have developed something that is really moving the industry forward. You want editorial to be featuring you. Like this is like you want people to be referring you, not necessarily you coming at the customer. That's like
Okay.
a warm introduction. If your friend tells you to meet someone or use this product, I have done studies on the value of a referral, and 50% of referrals result in action. And
Hmm.
that is outstanding. So that's what
It
you want
is,
in the
yeah.
awareness phase.
Does that, it seems like to me that's really playing the long game. Are the closing times or the sales cycles longer with that?
There's going to be less intent from the people that you meet there. I would say if you're going to budget your marketing, do 50 to 60% of your efforts in the consideration phase and have really good vetting for who you're exposing to that content. Like have deflection mechanisms. Between every phase, you should have deflection mechanisms, maybe 20 to 30% of your effort in the awareness phase to get new people in the door, and then the rest on your decision making should be your salespeople should be aware of like what that customer already wants, and you should have a pretty streamlined process for like quickly getting them there. You should not be using time at that phase. It should be quick to understand what that customer is looking for if you have a good process in the previous phases.
Am I understanding it correctly? Then you're saying if somebody is the right fit, even though you're only focusing on awareness, when they hit the net, they should move through
Some
pretty
deflection
quickly, or
mechanisms might be who is not your customer, like students,
Mm.
because you are on stages. A broad audience that might not necessarily be focused is going to be seeing you. If people are interested, that's great, but you shouldn't be spending your marketing and sales dollars on them if they're not the right customer for you. Have some pre-disqualifiers, and then when you are in marketing and in all these platforms, we have there's a lot of features that enable us to target, and that's awesome, but we really need to be hyper-focused and make sure to utilize the exclusion features. When you set targeting settings, like I want to target a manufacturing operating manager to get my equipment into their factory. It doesn't, like when you run out of those people, then it will like continue targeting more. You have to tell whatever algorithm it is to stop and put a box
Mm.
around this person. Make sure to fill out all of the exclusion mechanisms. You should do that with the leads that come in the door. You should be cleaning your email database as well. Email databases decay at a rate of 20% a year or more sometimes because people are moving jobs. You can't necessarily trust that your leads are actually good.
We both have worked with startup founders and early stage companies. We talked about this before. There tends to be this recurring thing where founders they fall in love with the product. They usually have deep technical knowledge, and they pour years of study and experience into these innovations. And when they go to tell the world about it, they have a really hard time bridging that gap of like they focus on the product itself and telling the product story, but also their thinking is so far ahead of everybody else that they just lose people. How do you help
Yeah.
companies with
Um,
this problem?
so think about it like this. You're the founder who has built your space station and you've made it to space and you're revolving this planet, but everyone else is on Earth and you have to give them a spaceship to get to you. Your marketing material should, like in the awareness phase, like, oh wow, this is possible. This vision for a better future for me is possible, and I should continue talking to this company. And then like, okay, how are we going to go on this journey together? And that's like your consideration stuff. So animate, I've been advising founders for as long as I can remember. I'm excited, and whenever I meet I started in the engineering space, so I love to nerd out with other engineers. Being in the sustainability space and trying to make sustainable change happen, I've noticed that we have all these people with bright ideas, and I worked on a solar window early on, and I saw the value of my ability to communicate the vision of that technology and why we should be investing in it. And so Animate exists to help innovators champion their market. And we help you build that rocket ship to success. Oftentimes, when you're the solo founder, you don't have a ton of resources. Your business struggles to get off the ground because you don't have the tools to get your customers to journey with you. One of my offerings with Animate is what I'm calling a growth lab. I'm building a course starting with the systems thinking canvas. That's a free resource, but there's a whole course around that, get you to think about the environment that you're operating in. What do we do about it? Let's build you a go-to-market plan. This course is the cost of an executive education course. It helps you and gives you the tools needed to DIY, start anytime, go at your own pace. Um, and then I also offer for Series A size businesses or above who have some funding, they can maybe afford some part time work. I offer, like, hire me, or I have a collective of partners who are awesome at what they do. If I'm not an expert in it, I can bring them into the project and we can figure out how to get you there. That's the premise behind Animate. And we're just trying to make sustainable innovation a reality.
Awesome. I wanted to ask too, why animate? Where did that name come from?
I think we have the power to design the future we want to have, and there are many options for that. We have our own internal world, we have our our physical world, we also have our digital world. I'm a hybrid person and I operate in all of those spaces. Animate means to bring to life, and I want to bring to life those future realities. And I use the number 8 because that is representative of systems in continuous flow. And it's the infinity symbol in the circular economy, which is the space that I'm operating in. So I felt like
Mhm.
Animate was a strong name. The logo, I don't tell this often to people, but the logo is a 3D model of energy in a system, the resources, like we're adding a large amount of resources and then we're not working or adding resources. And so I made a 3D representation of that and it ended up being, when I was turning the model, I was like, oh, it's an 8. So
Gotcha. Now I want to look up that logo again
yeah.
and look at it again. That's great. And then you had made a note of for the systems thinking canvas.
So people can
So,
download, if people want to, you can download the Systems Thinking Canvas. If you are an industrial innovator developing breakthrough electronic or advanced hardware, alternative materials, or software systems that help improve the sustainability and circularity of our supply chain, let's talk. You can reach me at animateco.com or search for Sarah Osell on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect with you.
awesome. We are almost at time. So thanks so much for coming on, Sarah, and for sharing all of your marketing wizardry. I hope it's helpful for all of the listeners out there. It's helpful for me to continue to understand this ecosystem, and I appreciate the way that you approach things with this holistic systems mindset.
Thank you. I hope it helps demystify some things and
So,
makes it less stressful because there are routes to success. There are quick start ways of getting the word out about your business and getting people in the door to talk to you. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming process. I hope this can help some people get started. And the systems thinking canvas, definitely go download it. It's a good way to start thinking about what your business can do to succeed.